Hi, my name's Joy Garfitt. I'm Director of Operations and interim role with Powys Teaching Health Board. My TED Talk is on the careers advice I wish I'd had, a message to my 14-year-old self. In my experience, careers advice in the late 1980s was very limited. Long before the internet and when schools had one computer for about 800 children, I distinctly remembered a PSE lesson on what to do when we left school, taught by the most jaded PE teacher. Armed with just a pencil and a booklet, we filled out a type of quiz to indicate binary yes-no answers to such things as, I do like working with animals, I do not like working outdoors. 30 questions, and a couple of weeks later, for some magical system of interpretation, our results were back. The results were one of my first insights into the class divide. The kids from more well-to-do or middle-class backgrounds received recommendations to seek valued and well-respected jobs such as doctors and nurses or people who worked in banks. I eagerly waited the recommendation for my future career, only to discover the top suggestion was to become a taxidermist. My fellow working class pupils received such lofty aspirations as supermarket assistant, lorry driver, agricultural or factory worker, all valuable professions but not immensely inspiring for a relatively bright 14-year-old. How did that pencil and booklet, the magical early computer, understand the class divide and place us so neatly into expected professions? 3 years later, my epiphany came. Like many teenagers, I had a part-time job in a supermarket, and coming up to my A-levels, I was offered what my mother considered to be an opportunity of a lifetime to become a management apprentice in the vegetable department of a major supermarket. If anything, this was the spur I needed to focus on a university education. 30 years later, you may be disappointed to hear that I never became a taxidermist or a supermarket manager. But how on earth did I get from being a working class council estate kid to a senior manager in the NHS? I know that TED Talks are supposed to inspire and encourage the listener to rally for action. I'm sorry, this talk may be a disappointment, as it's more about my unplanned journey through employment in the public sector and a few of the lessons I learned on the way. In some way, I hope they'll be helpful to you. So, the advice I wish I had. First of all, choose a career that you expect to enjoy, and if you don't enjoy it, be brave and change. Role models are important to us all. I imagine that most often we consider career and job options based upon what we see others doing around us. If we're surrounded by doctors and artists, creative types, interesting scientists, then we're much more likely to consider this than other occupations. As a teenager, my world was small, focused on the immediate community where I lived, and there weren't many people around me who worked in diverse careers. Essentially, I only know those who worked on the land, in factories, supermarkets, and teachers. I hadn't even considered the NHS. To my young brain, there were only two health professions, doctors and nurses. I was terrible, and still am, at maths, and so medicine was out. And I wasn't keen on bodily fluids, so nursing wasn't an option. Consideration of a career in health and social care wasn't on my horizon. So in the footsteps of an inspirational RE teacher, I went to study theology and then on to teacher training college. Following completion of training, I started out as a teacher in the Rhondda Valley. However, I soon realised that firstly, I didn't like children. Secondly, I didn't like spending time with teachers or being in the teacher staff room. It was a place of disillusion and counting the days down to retirement. Of course, this could have just been the school I was working in, but in my heart I knew this wasn't the long-term profession for me. My second advice, take opportunities as they rise. I have found that throughout my career, opportunities have arisen. My ticket to freedom from teaching came from an opportunity to go on a secondment that nobody else wanted. Working in a small team on a Valley's hilltop estate, undertaking what was essentially social work, just me, a nurse, a social worker. I loved it. I found that it set me free. Yes, trying to get kids to attend school, setting up literacy work with parents, helping people find jobs, reduce their drinking and cut back on the fags wasn't exactly easy, but it suited me and I was inspired by the people I work with. From here, someone saw something in me that I couldn't see, and I was encouraged to take an improvement role in social services. And the rest was history as I progressed through various interesting jobs to become head of a social services department, and now an executive director of a health board. Perhaps this is why I recognise why it's so important to give people showing aptitude and not necessarily the traditional qualification or experience a leg up and a space to try. My third top tip, banish any sense of failure. My parents were proud that I'd become a teacher. I was the first in the family to go to university and have a job, to quote my dad, with prospects and a pension. Leaving teaching for a strange job doing undefinable community work wasn't something my parents could understand. They thought I was throwing away my education. In truth, I did feel a failure, and a little bit of me still does. I'm glad I made the jump now, but working in the NHS amongst people with bona fide professions, professional bodies and royal colleges to belong to, still does make me feel a little bit inadequate. So come on, all of us who are professional managers, project managers, operational bods, isn't it time for us to set up a club of our own, a place for us all in the NHS who don't belong anywhere else? My fourth top tip, choose jobs based on what is interesting, creative, and where you can make a difference. My career pathway has been more similar to a plate of spaghetti than a staircase. It has taken me 20 years to realise that this is okay. Not everyone takes a predefined route and sails through the same career from qualification to retirement. I've also discovered that it's okay not to know what to do when you grow up. Now, as an adult, just about clinging on to my mid-40s, I look back and I'm thankful for a slightly odd career trajectory. It's given me a huge amount of experience in managing the weird and wonderful down to the downright strange. All of these experiences have given me resources and resilience to survive and thrive in the NHS. So, my message to my 14-year-old self. You are and always were good enough. Ability is more than good grades. Some of my best, most affirming colleagues were like me, mediocre at school, yet have made the most amazing clinicians, practitioners and leaders. And finally, prize your creativity, flexibility, problem solving and common sense. In my experience, these skills are surprisingly rare, and when they join forces with others, anything is possible. Diolch. Thank you for listening.